Welcome to the Cara Michelle Show, where we break out of the matrix together and return heaven to earth. This is a place for the spiritual seekers and leaders, the dreamers and doers, the conscious creators and world changers. You can expect a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but mostly a whole lot of purpose, freedom, and sovereignty. And of course, all things quantum. May this podcast serve you in remembering the truth of who you are, all that you came here to do, and how deeply supported you are in doing it. You are incredibly powerful and your mission is protected. So it's time to dial up your frequency and recalibrate to your higher self and limitless potential. Get ready, because we're about to blast off. A new reality awaits you on the other side. I'll see you there. So we know that disclosure is real and that for generations, people have been having experiences where they are seeing UFOs, where they are being abducted or brought on board, or where they're having encounters with aliens or different galactic beings. And the only reason it's not talked about more is because the mainstream media either brushes it aside or paints them and ridicules them, so that more people question it or don't believe it and are closed off to the narrative. And I think we can look at Hollywood and the news in general and see that things have been painted very much in one side or in one light in regards to there being different galactic races or different alien species. I don't even like using the word alien, but it's something we all know and understand because of what we've been taught and how it's been spoken about. But anyway, we know that these beings exist. I've had some really cool experiences myself with them and having sightings, catching things on camera. I've got lots of different footage on my Instagram page in my highlights. But I've also had some really cool stories from friends, from people in my community, as I opened up and shared about my own encounters where they felt safe and comfortable to share their experiences. And it's so powerful how many people are actually having these different encounters, and yet we've been afraid to maybe share it. And so today's episode is all about the first UFO sighting I had in Scotland back in 2021. And I'm going to have more episodes on other sightings and other encounters because there's so many details that I think are important that I want to touch on. But I want to start this off by first two disclaimers, because there's people in my audience in the past who immediately started throwing words and names at me and saying I was demonic and saying that like this was pure evil. And I'm like, okay, we got to chill here. There are some very benevolent beings in other dimensions, in other galaxies, that are very kind and loving. And also, there are some who operate through shadow and do bring harm and darkness to the planet. So I'm definitely not negating that. I've encountered some experiences with very more evil, we could say, beings, but the ones that I'm going to be sharing about were incredibly loving and benevolent, and you can tell in that experience because of the vibration that you are personally in. So before I had this encounter, I was in the greatest state of ecstasy and overwhelming gratitude and bliss. I was like in immense gratitude to God for the things that I had encountered, for people in my life. I was just like this overflowing bubble of love sitting outside under the stars when I had my first experience. And so if that doesn't tell you the frequency that I'm operating in, and therefore the frequency match of the beings that connected and I was able to see, then you've got to do some more work. you got to look a little bit more at like law of attraction and vibration and all these things. Because I've been in experiences where I was moving through really heavy trauma and there was a lot of pain and wounding, and that did open me up to encounter both just more negative, toxic, heavy people in the 3D reality, as well as more, we could say, demonic experiences with like the dream state, with the astral realms, with energetics, because the frequency I was in was so heavy and dense that it was a vibrational match for more of the same to come in. This isn't to scare you. If you're ever in like a heavy state, please don't feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be attacked or something. That's not my point here. But for any like naysayers out there, just pay attention to the frequency that you're operating in, because if you're operating in a very black and white mindset, and if you're operating in a very fear-based mindset, you are going to possibly attract that or be more on that plane. And so what I want to share in this episode is very much about how there are aliens, there are beings out there, and they are deeply supporting the transition that's going on the planet right now, and trying to help assist with getting Earth back to where she was meant to be before a lot of dark forces took over and started brainwashing, corrupting everything. A second disclaimer that I wanted to say is that yes, I am going to be using the term alien, I am going to be using the term UFO, which if you love Stephen Greer, I'm a big fan. He talks about UAPs instead of saying it's an unidentified flying object, because they have been identified. We know what they are. Governments have known what they are for decades now. So it's not like this foreign thing flying in the sky. We know what it is. But instead of constantly saying UAP, which I think has to do with like aerial something else. But anyway, instead of using that term, I'm just going to keep saying UFOs, but come along with me. So I was in Scotland 2 summers ago, 2021, and it was my very last night there. Actually, I was staying in this really small, secluded northern town, which was beautiful, absolutely stunning over there. I just spent a couple months house sitting and relaxing, grounding in, doing a lot of writing, doing a lot of really deep healing. And in that time period, I had deepened my gifts and my connection to higher dimensions. So I was going really deep into my quantum healing work and taking it to like a next level in terms of a lot of the things I was releasing and uncovering from my subconscious, my higher self, that higher dimensional aspects of me. She was coming through quite strongly and assisting with things. My intuition was strengthening. I was being shown past lives and old karma that needed to be cleared, and things that had contributed to recent heartbreak and situations in my life. And everything with my spiritual practices was strengthening. And I had a few days in Scotland where it was like just full-blown communication is the best way to say it, because I was in a really deep meditative state, so relaxed, like no thoughts, nothing going on. And then I would just receive this full message and this long stream of consciousness regarding past lives or regarding certain things. And it was kind of like a mixture of hearing the messages and watching a movie, where all of a sudden I was like floating and looking down and watching all of this play out. And I would be overcome with emotion. It resonated so deeply in my body, and it was profound. And so I already was deepening these gifts, but it was Friday the 13th, which actually is like a good day if you dive deep enough into reading that. But it was Friday the 13th of August, 2021. And it was my last night in Scotland, and I realized like I haven't actually sat out under the stars here, because most nights it had clouded over or it had been kind of cool. And I was like, you've got to go do this. So I bundled up, I had all my blankets, and I went and laid out in the backyard on the grass. I was listening to some music, and I just really hit this deep, deep state of gratitude, like unlike anything before, I would say. And as I was sort of praying and thanking God for the people, for the recent lessons, for the immense healing, I was connecting to my brother Derek, who's departed, and just feeling overwhelming gratitude and love for him and his role in my life. And I was laying, staring up at the stars, and I did see a few planes fly by, so that was normal. I saw a couple satellites, so that was normal. I was kind of like, okay, cool. I see your flight path. I see which way you're going. Nothing fancy here. And then it was just before midnight, I think probably 11:45 or something. And I started to see one moving, but it was moving in really sporadic patterns. Like it was going in one direction, so it was moving forward, but then it would kind of stop and stall and then back up a tiny bit and then move forward again. And sometimes the speed would shift, so it wasn't even like it was going in a straight speed, and it wasn't going in a straight line, a flight path. It was kind of up, down, a little bit chaotic. So I was like, okay, this is not like the planes that just flew over or like the satellites that just flew over. So what is it? I'm a very curious being. I also grew up with a lot of like alien influence, so to say, from my dad. And I've always felt this deep connection, this deep belief that there's so much more out there. So I was just like, let's play, like, let's have fun and see what happens. It would be super cool if this actually was a UFO that I'm looking at. So let's see. And I watched it, and then I saw two other ones that were not quite as bright, but same thing, like moving in tandem and just moving in really strange directions. So I got out my phone, I tried to film as best as I could, just holding it straight and watching their flight path go. And I couldn't really see anything on the phone camera itself or on the phone screen until later on at night. So I just thought, I'm just gonna hold this, and I set the intention because I know that they're telepathic beings. So I knew that if I was communicating and open to receive communication, and if they were open to receive communication, we could connect that way. We didn't need to be like physically standing face to face to talk. So I set the intention of like, I'm a super open, loving being. If you want to make yourself known, if you want to show up or come through or anything, you know, you're safe here. I hope it's okay. I've got my camera out. I want to give you, like, I want you to be able to give consent. Obviously, like, whatever's meant to be seen here will be seen. And that's it. And that's a big thing that Dr. Stephen Greer talks about with his CE5 protocol, which I hadn't ever done actually until a couple months after this experience, when I went to his weekend event at Gaia headquarters in Colorado, and we got to do a CE5 meditation there with him. But I know he talked about that around really making sure that it's safe, and like these beings obviously are very aware of intention, and so if someone has a negative intention or harmful, hurtful, they're not going to make themselves known. As well as if you have a very ego-based intention and it's all about like you and something that this is going to make mean for you, they probably won't make themselves known. They'll probably keep, you know, themselves out of sight. But if you're coming from your heart, it is felt, and it's this different loving frequency, and so that's the best place to operate from. I didn't know that at the time, but I was just in such an overwhelming place of love that I was like, of course, like if you want to share anything or show up, I'm here for it. I would love to be the channel for you to come through. So I was holding my camera, staring up there. I couldn't really tell a ton. I definitely saw the different directions though. And it was maybe about 10 minutes of that. Then they started to move back towards me, coming back near and right above where I was laying. And at this point I was like, okay, this feels like enough evidence to me. This already feels like it's not a plane or a satellite. I can clearly tell that. And I do believe that this is a UFO. But my logical mind is a little bit skeptical. I'm a little bit now, I've been staring at this for like 10 minutes. So now my mind's going like, am I just making all of this up? I don't know. Like, I could be. I know I'm not, but it's strange that it feels so normal, and it's strange that it just feels so kind of like, oh, of course. Yeah, I'm just looking up at some UFOs. It felt so casual and so relaxed that my logical mind was kind of like, maybe I'm missing something here. So as they started to fly more above me, I closed my eyes. I just imagined myself connecting to this ship, and I was shown different images and a couple of beings on the ship itself. And that was kind of new to me, but I had a similar experience in Stonehenge about 2 months prior. So I was like very relaxed in this meditative state. And as I had my eyes closed, I set the intention and I said to them, okay, I do believe that you're here. I really believe in your existence, and thank you so much for making yourself known and for showing up and just like delighting me. It was such a cool evening. But if you're open to it, it would be super cool if you started doing some figure eights, because that is something that my logical mind cannot question. That is something that is different than what you've been doing. Obviously, you've been flying at a different pace. You've been kind of erratic all over the place right now. So I know you're not a plane. I know you're not a satellite, but it would be super cool if you could do some figure eights, because now I've like set the intention, I've communicated with you, and that would be mind blowing. And that would be like the absolute best confirmation you could give me. And so I said that, and then I laid there, and at that point, it was still moving a little bit, and then it totally stopped and just stayed still. And so I was kind of like, oh, okay. And it was about 10 to 15 seconds after me asking that, and it stopped, and then all of a sudden, it started moving so quickly in all these figure eights. I was just like, what? No freaking way. And so it was going so fast, back and forth, looping around. And I swear my jaw was probably dropped wide open. I was like, whoa, this is so cool. And it did that for about 10 seconds, maybe 15 seconds. I honestly don't know. But I was like, oh my gosh, mind blown. Thank you so much for showing me this. Thank you so much for doing that. And so I continued watching. They did the figure eights. They stopped after about, maybe 15 seconds. And then I continued watching, and I did have my camera out at that point again after to film a little bit. And this is where it got super wild. Again, there's footage on my Instagram highlights, because I caught it dematerializing. I totally lost the word for a second. I was like, what happened? I caught the ship start to move super fast. You can see it zoom forward really quickly, stop like in an instant, go a different direction, zoom back up, and then all of a sudden the ship started to dematerialize, like disappear, and it almost looks like this smoke, and then it kind of appears a little bit further away, and then the same thing happens. And so that part I did not see with my human eyes. I did not see that at all happening. I had seen it fly quickly and move over into that direction and stop. But it wasn't until I watched the playback on my camera, which for some reason I didn't watch for like another 2 months. I think I got in that night. I was so excited about the communication, about the figure eights. I was so excited that I had camera footage, but I watched it inside under the kitchen light and I couldn't see anything on the screen because of the contrast and the darkness. That it wasn't until a couple months later when I was flying to Colorado to go to the Stephen Greer event at Gaia that I was sharing with a friend, and he had asked, like, did you catch any of it on camera? And I was like, oh, I did, but I haven't actually watched it. And so I was sitting on the airplane with the shutters down, and it was quite dark on the plane. And that was when I was able to finally see it. And I was like, holy shit, this is insane watching this happen. And I had no idea that it had been sitting on my camera photos album for months without me even realizing what I had caught. So we are not alone on the planet. Obviously, we're not alone in the galaxy and in the universe, where it's bigger and vaster than our human mind could ever comprehend. And we are coming to a turning point where this communication, this connection is going to increase for those who are open to it, for those who are living from their hearts and operating from a place of integrity and sovereignty and, you know, focused on the highest good. I do believe what the media is continuing to create is they're trying to create fear. So many of us have been talking about this for years now, about how they're planning a fake invasion and they're planning to disclose, which is what we've seen recently, that they're sharing a bit more about these sightings. They're planting more strange things in the sky and then talking about it on the news. And the news is nothing but a propaganda box. So obviously there's an agenda behind everything they show us on there. But many of us have been predicting for a long time that there's going to be a lot of disclosure, a lot of controlled discussion on the media to make people believe that they are real. And then there's going to be a false invasion. And just like every other psychological warfare tactic that they have used to just play with people's minds, keep us in a constant state of fear, poke our root chakra need for stability and security, trigger old pains and wounds and all the things. Like, what better way to do that than what they've already been gearing up and kind of plating? You go to a restaurant and they start to plate the dish. This is what's been happening with aliens and with UFO sightings and with the whole disclosure movement. So if you can relate, if you've had an experience where you've connected or you've seen something, please know that you are not crazy. This is real. This is happening. There's way more people who have experienced this than you probably think or know. And if you're being pulled into the side of thinking that these beings are here to cause harm, that is absolutely not the case. If anything, so many different races are supporting right now to help shift what's taken place on Earth, because Earth is such an important part of the galaxy and the balance that transcends beyond just our our scope of the 3D Earth and the world that we're living in. And so things need to be shifted, things need to be healed and fixed, and the way the current control has been taking us is not a way that's conducive to everyone's benefit. And so we're going to be seeing a lot more support coming through. But if you're looking to deepen this connection or have these experiences yourself, I do recommend meditation is the best place to start, because as you find stillness in your own mind and in your own vessel, you are able to connect to higher realms. And I want to include that you're able to connect to God consciousness and connect to the ultimate creator who created everything. And so this is the most beautiful thing you can do, is become that channel, that vessel for divine guidance to come through, for higher levels of clarity, higher levels of communication, for beautiful insights and ideas to move forward with. And it really does come from, obviously, also the releasing work and healing the traumas, healing limiting beliefs, healing things that are blocking you or holding you down. Anything that's adding extra density and heaviness to your vessel, to your being, to your day-to-day life. As you release those things and you start to feel lighter, you can actually hear and receive those higher levels of guidance so much easier. And I want to end this episode off because this was so cool. When I started sharing this story to a family friend of ours, and I was telling him about the Scotland experience, sharing everything, showed the videos, and he was like, this is crazy. And then we started talking about a friend of his who worked in the military and was flying offshore of Scotland in the Air Force, I believe, or something like that. He was flying, and this friend saw multiple UFOs or different craft that were flying faster than he was, that were hitting the water and like going through the waves and not being impacted at all. And I forget if he said that they actually went underwater or if they just stayed like right above. But this guy who saw this said like, it was crazy. Like, I've never seen anything like this, and it happened multiple times. And it's something that's obviously extremely classified. Any footage that was caught from the plane he was flying has been kept top secret. But he did see these beings or UFOs of some kind that were doing things that our normal planes, our normal crafts cannot do. And it was just mind-blowing for me to have that extra confirmation, because it was in a similar area of Scotland. Actually, it was like the northern side that this gentleman had been working at a few years prior and had this experience. And so just know you are not alone. And I find comfort in that personally, because I think the human experience can feel very isolating. And at least in my upbringing, if it weren't for my dad's openness to believe in so much more, I would have felt really limited and stuck by the way we're taught to think so small and really only focus on ourselves. We have trouble focusing or caring about the animals, the earth itself, our neighbors, let alone believing that there are other beings beyond Earth. And I think that's part of the problem that's been taking place, is just this immense selfishness and focus on service to self instead of the interconnectedness and the unity consciousness that connects all of us, whether in the 2-dimensional realms or whether in the 12th dimensional realms. We're all interconnected, and it is all taking place right here, right now. It's just our human eyes are limited in what they can see and perceive. But as you continue to clear things out and open up space and reach those meditative states and allow yourself to receive and see in new ways or receive higher guidance, you'll notice that you start to perceive more than meets the eye. And you bring back on those psychic gifts that I believe every single one of us has. And you open up to galactic teams. You open up to your higher dimensional reality and higher multidimensional self, which we all have. We're just currently only living in the 3-dimensional body. But the more you do this, the more you can connect to that. And this is where, as I said, meditation, subconscious reprogramming, energy healing has been huge for me to help me open up to that and get into a state where I can be so receptive to receive those messages or see those UFOs. What I'm super curious about is if someone else were laying out in a like 2 houses down, if they would have seen the same thing I saw that night. Because it is a matter of frequency. It is a matter of the vibration we're currently operating in. And as I said, I was brought into such a transcendent state that night. It's amazing because anytime I've had experiences, it has been because of that state of being. It's been this overflowing, overwhelming sense of love and gratitude. Even if I'm like, I don't even know why, but it's just taking over me. And it's in those moments that I receive the most incredible either downloads or, like that night, actually seeing the UFOs, or another night a year later seeing something really cool, which I'll get into in another episode. But I want to encourage you to remain open to the fact that there is a lot more that meets the eye, but the media is not telling you what actually serves you ever. It's like a little disclaimer. They're never, ever, ever telling you what actually serves you. So not even just in regards to aliens, but like we've got pretty good lifetime worth of evidence that that's how they operate. But know that you're not alone. You're deeply supported. These beings do want to support us. And my last disclaimer as I wrap this up is that it's very important to, if you're asking, if you're connecting, to make sure you're asking and setting the intention that you're only available for those operating in service to the light, operating for the highest good. Because that ties into the very initial comment I shared where a woman saw the video of the craft dematerializing. She started saying it was demonic, I should be ashamed, all these things. And I was like, I know myself well enough, and I know the state of being that I was living in, and I know what I operate with, and I always, no matter what I'm doing, I always connect to God first and to this beautiful, loving creator. And I always set the intention that I only receive that of the highest good for myself or for the planet. Like, I'm not available for any trickster energy. I'm not available for malevolent beings who want to come through. I'm not available for, any of those like dirty, dark energies. And so it's just really important, if you're expanding in this area, that you pay attention to that and set your intention that it's only those operating for the highest. Because that way you know that when you feel that, you'll also feel it. You'll be able to feel like, if it makes you feel unsettled, then there's 2 things going on. It's either an energy or a being that doesn't have the best intentions, and that's why you're feeling unsettled, or it's because your ego and your current self is a little bit shocked by what's taking place, and so that shock triggers the fight or flight response, and so you feel unsettled and unsafe. But you'll feel after a very clear difference of like, okay, this still feels like it wasn't a good energy or wasn't a good intention with what was created or connected to, or you'll feel like, actually, that was really cool. I just was surprised and caught off guard, but they didn't do anything harmful. They didn't say anything. Like, you'll be able to know the difference. And that's where discernment is key, no matter what kind of work you're doing, no matter what kind of galactic beings you're connecting to, or what dimensional plane you're operating on or asking for guidance from. But I just felt like I needed to end this message by saying that, so that you know how to protect yourself and still have those guards up of like, I'm a sovereign being. I am in control of my own space. I am in control of my mind, my body, my energy field. And if someone is operating in the light and can be of service and has support or guidance, I am open to receiving it. But there's a very clear boundary that's set there, And it comes from that discernment, that confidence, that sense of self, and that ability to still protect yourself and only operate in the light, which we'll get into more. I also talk about that a lot inside my quantum healing bundles, where I'm helping you connect deeper to yourself, to your multidimensional self, to angels, galactic beings, other guides, to God consciousness, ultimately becoming that open channel and clearing out any of the programming and limitations that are holding you back from the things that you desire, and helping you come back home to your limitless truth, the true essence of who you are, your true nature, so that you can operate at your highest and, be in this world but not of it. So there's more information for the quantum healing hypnosis work in the description box. And otherwise, I will be back very soon to share about some of the other experiences I've had with UFOs, with, I believe it was actually like a wormhole that I saw and I caught on camera. At first, I thought it was kind of like UFO or alien, but it looks a lot more like literally like a wormhole and like a jump, a timeline jump or something, a dimensional jump. It's hard to explain, but I will get into that on another episode, as well as other communication ways to increase and open up your channel. But thank you for being here with me. Definitely let me know in the comments, depending on what platform you're listening on. Let me know if you've experienced anything like this before, and I will see you very soon on the next episode.